Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show, we'll revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Moosie Drier and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen, along with Moosie Drier, and today we are thrilled to welcome someone who has over 400 credits to his career, including playing Leonardo and Rocksteady in the 80s animated series Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He's also had lead roles in such beloved series like He-Man and Barnyard, as well as the author of the new book detailing his experiences with being part of a family of show business royalty. Now they're all here, the King family, over 100 years of entertainment, from America's first family of song. Please help us welcome Cam Clarke. Cam, thanks so much for joining us.
Is Cam Clarke really here?
Oh my gosh.
Wow. He is so freaking talented, but I hear he's a real
Agreed.
diva. So
You know, we could see you saying that. You're not like the guy behind the curtain or anything. You have video here.
So we do have a lot to cover, but let's start by going back with you. We usually ask guests if they grew up in a family that encouraged involvement in the arts. We know yours did. So
we can save some time. We can save some time with that question.
Well, he had over 170 credits to his name. Your mom was part of the King sisters. So need to first ask, when you were growing up as a little kid, did you ever think that this was what all families were like? Or did you realize how special and different yours was?
No, this is what all families were like.
That is hilarious. So you're in school thinking, yeah, okay, we can hang out. But what time's your show at? What time's your family coming on? Funny.
Well, and just on that note, my naivete, I mean, obviously the joke of it that well, yeah, this is what we did. And it's like no one was, I mean, I was so little, but it wasn't like, does anybody want to? It was like, okay, so we're starting rehearsals on June 11th, and all us kids and the parents are like, oh, okay, whose house? My naivete that not all families had this, even as adult. I mean, Moosie, you might have even been here for a couple of these little holiday sit-down dinners where I would do things like for conversation extenders, like, all right, let's go around the table and somebody share their favorite Christmas memory. As you know, we've done this many, many times. And realizing, I'm just thinking, if not King family, I'm thinking everyone has a glorious Christmas. As you know, you and I have talked about the differences of such.
Sure.
And this is only like handful of years ago that I went, oh, there were such things as bad Christmases, or where Christmas is just about a big fight and so and so's drunk, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it took me so long, and yet it made me even appreciate this even more. And I'm not realizing this till I'm 60 years old, and we're going around the table, or I've asked someone to speak at our party.
Oh,
and I go, yeah, just share with this and that. It's like, I think you better choose someone else.
but what a nice blessing, Cam, because I don't know how you former child actors do it. I would never, but you a lot of people don't have that kind of, I mean, you, at least it's not people have good Christmases. You literally lived inside a Christmas special. Like your life.
It was literally what we honestly just lifted our real life, believe it or not, onto the screen. I mean, with the moms having been in the business since the days of vaudeville, and still, very active musicians and stuff, and with their coming out of semi-retirement in the 50s with their whole new sound and just whole different look. That's an interesting point we can come back to. All of us kids were raised under the piano. At the rehearsal, when we're bringing in the kids. I can't find a sitter, so they're here at rehearsal. the moms were famous singers, and they went, just a tiny bit of backstory. They went into semi-retirement. Uh, this one moved away, had to followed her husband to New York, who was a big wig at Columbia Records, and mom followed her husband, uh, who was in the shipping business, and they lived in New Jersey. And I have two brothers, Lex and Rick, who are 10 and 15 years older from mom's first marriage. Her husband died of a heart attack at 36.
Wow.
Literally came home from work and conk. And as horrible as that was, and believe me, my mom, I don't think she ever got over it really.
Mhm.
But the silver lining was, I can move home. I can get out of Jersey. And she always said, every place there was like a George Washington slept here town, in which she was like, oh, brother, really?
Yeah.
And she got to come home to the west of the Rockies, specifically Los Angeles. And my Aunt Yvonne went, with this horrible thing that's happened to Alice, we need something to cheer her up. Why don't we get back in the business? Not let's make her dinner or let's go on a trip, but let's become stars again. So they changed their sound. They went from this Andrews Sisters big band thing to a jazz thing of the 50s. They all went blonde. They all looked like Marilyn Monroe. And they had a friend over at Capitol, and he said, I can't submit these new demos under your name because you're too old. So being too old is no new thing, as you guys probably know. But to those of you who aren't in the business, this is not,
Mhm.
this happens, always happens. So, and we're talking, mom's like 45. Yvonne is 40,
Wow.
blah, blah, blah. And so he submits them without a name. Oh, I just discovered these gals, these jazz singers. And for those who may not know them, they had a Manhattan transfer. My moms were, an inspiration for them.
Mhm. Oh, wow.
So he submitted them without a name. And it was like, who are these young gals? We want to sign them right up. And Esquire magazine, which is really embarrassing for them, I would say, didn't do your research, voted them the best new up and coming group.
That's great.
And so then at one point they were asked to do this benefit for a building fund for Brigham Young University. And Aunt Vonnie had this wacky idea. Why don't let's just bring the family. They didn't want to do just us. Let's just toss the kids up on stage and bring our two brothers and their spouses and all of that. We'll just put on a wacky show. She had it filmed. We did 2 tests of it at local churches here of our family, and they're, rented a auditorium, like a high school big auditorium, something.
Mhm.
And the response was crazy. And she called a friend at ABC. She goes, I've got this idea that you just might like. And this was raw footage shot by the film department at the university. And he went, well, I love you gals. Cut me an hour. Just do some, don't do backflips, but just cut an hour together. And she submitted it, and it was, how soon can we get a pilot on?
We'd like you to be a family so unique, the likes of which you've never seen on television or the movie screen, and you soon see just what we mean when you meet the King family.
Everybody I know in your family is just out of the world talented. But I mean, that just doesn't seem to happen anymore. Like, here's something I shot on my old phone. I found my phone in a garage, and here, check it out. Okay, let's put you on prime time. Let's put you on a network. Yeah.
Yeah. And Moosie, you and I, although you're, a good number of years younger than I, we come from an era that nowadays, the interwebs and all the shows and everything makes it harder to be an artist. You would think it would make it easier because there's so many platforms.
Mhm.
But my experience has been there's too many people vying for it, and too
Yeah.
much for, I'm not saying too much, those young people, just,
Right.
and since there were only 3 networks,
Yeah.
you, as existing already, you're a celebrity, it was easier to find
Yeah.
someone to talk to you.
Sure. I know what you're saying. There's so much content. However, in proportion, there's so many more people looking to do it. So the pool's bigger. Yeah. But the thing is about your special, this is what's crazy. I think the King family special, correct me if I'm wrong, was introduced by Bing Crosby, the first one.
Yes.
Well, I must say, when ABC announced this as a family entertainment, they weren't kidding. I haven't seen so much family in one room since I left the house this morning.
And then, so where do you go from there? But also, what other celebrities came through your way? Who stands out in your mind?
We tested, or I should say ABC had a series called The Hollywood Palace, which was like their version of Ed Sullivan, except it had revolving hosts. And to test us, they had the King sisters were on doing a segment on this variety show. And then King sisters and their daughters. Then another episode was King sisters and their sons and daughters, And response was such that, this pilot, we're doing this pilot. Because our response to having these gals and their kids has been insane.
Yeah.
So, I mean, celebrity-wise, and again, this is all I knew from. So, and as we've gotten older, all of us kids talk about what we didn't, you don't get mad, you don't beat yourself up because your environment is what it is. But still, to wish you had appreciated that you performed with George Burns.
But I think when all the members of this wonderful family are on the stage together, it's the loveliest thing in television. And here they are, all 38 of them. The King family, ladies.
And Phyllis Diller and Ray Bolger. And in fact, the women did a number with Phyllis Diller where it was a cute little patter song original piece they wrote about Phyllis Diller's beauty school. And as you know, she was famous for her
character
hair, and she was just this insane lady. So all the beautiful, beautiful women in my family wore Phyllis Diller hair, but not wigs. Just took all those blonde hair piles and just ratted them out like this, and did this really funny bit about her with a song about Phyllis Diller's beauty school.
Well, you kind of answered my next question, because you worked with, you saw George Burns, you saw Phyllis Diller, Bing Crosby, so it didn't faze you at all because you grew up around that, right? I mean, that's amazing to me.
Yeah, and even with Ray Bolger, who I knew from my own entertainment experience of Scarecrow,
right?
That is the original hat that I wore in the picture The Wizard of Oz.
And every Thanksgiving, that's when it would air here. And I went, oh, cool. Look, he was the Scarecrow.
Whereas if you live in the George Washington slept here city, I get that. You don't know to be in awe.
You also worked with, big names, and you were little enough were you similarly I'm doing this movie with John Denver?
Yes and no. I got used to it. I grew up being allowed to stay up on school nights and watch Carson. And
Me too.
So I was
more of a
very
Dick Cavett guy, actually.
Okay, to each his own.
Yeah.
I hope he gets picked up. I think, but
ratings are looking good.
Ratings are looking good. But so no, I was very cognizant of who these people were. So I mean, I was appreciative, but after a while, you do get used to it. It's musicians and athletes that I would get starstruck about. Actors, okay,
I
pretty
will
good,
say
pretty good.
at a recent convention, because now it is a different story as an adult, and I look back at, oh my God, and I didn't, realize. Don't remember what town I was in for this Comic-Con, but all the other celebrities that are there, I geek out on some of these folks. But I'm in the green room, and there's this gal sitting at the table next to me, and we kind of nod, hey, hey, and it's Mackenzie Phillips.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, you you look so familiar to me. Have we met? And I went, I don't think so. She goes, well, yeah, your face. I went, well, I'm not I'm, as we called it in the voice field, I'm not a face actor. And she's just going like this, I went, well, okay, I'm just saying this, but it's not going to help you. I went, I was a actor. I mean, I was an on-camera child star thingy back in the 60s. And she went, oh, what show? I went, well, I don't know if you remember a thing called The King Family. Her hands come up to her mouth, tears start streaming
Yeah.
down her cheeks with, oh my God, my favorite show in all the
Think,
land.
think about the
And I'm
household
always
she
like,
grew up in.
Yeah.
well, oh, okay, there you go. There you go, Moosie. Perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, you just gave me yeah, and that's both with my own career and with the King family, to know that what you were doing saved. I mean, we'll get onto that more with my animation career, but I still have King family fans that write that I was an only child, and I could pretend that I was in your family, or just things of you are real, but you're also a fantasy, but you're real. So it takes it to a different level than just, I loved Yours, Mine, and Ours, one of my favorite movies. But I knew it wasn't a real group.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Lived in reality there.
well, since we're on the King family, I do want to ask about the book itself. So, again,
Thank
the
you.
title,
Yes.
yeah, they're all here. The King family, over 100 years of entertainment from America's first family of song. So, I just want, how long have you been working on the book, and what finally prompted you to do it? And what can we have
Well,
people find
first
in
of
it?
all, the title comes from the only line my grandma ever had on our show. It was our Thanksgiving special. And we're singing Over the River and Through the Woods, and our location was this gorgeous, huge Victorian home out in Camarillo, and Camarillo was still farms and ranches and stuff. And it stood in for Grandma's house. And we're singing, and we're all marching in, and the song stops, and there's a beat. And then my cousin, little Adam, who was probably 6 at the time, whatever, he comes running up and gives Grandma a peck, and he heads into the house for this wonderful Thanksgiving that's about to begin. And she says,
now they're all here.
and it is a line like other lines in our show that have become part of our personal vernacular. If we're like up at the cabin, Moose,
Yeah.
whoever is last, someone goes, now they're all here. And it
Yeah.
is just a phrase like other lines from our show that have become shorthand within us kids for things that are going on.
It's kind of like pack mentality. They're all here. Like we're complete now.
Well, that's what he said. We had a version, our own of that. My mom ad-libbed in their act once. Yvonne says, and they're all blonde, right? And Yvonne says, I'm the only natural blonde. And Mom just chirped in with, oh, I don't know. I liked it both ways. And,
What?
that's what she said.
Yeah.
And so we will, depending on what's going on, you look sideways at each other and you go, I liked it both ways. So just these wonderful treasures of
Yeah.
just the language alone. I just took 40 minutes up just
No,
talking
no,
about the
no,
title.
no. We are not on a limit.
What was
I
your
was gonna-
question
I just wonder
again?
what finally prompted you to write it?
Oh, right. Yeah, pretty small reason. I was pissed at something that was said about us in Bob Mackey came out with a beautiful coffee table book a few years back, and we were his first series. First time he ever had a weekly thing. He had done
Oh, wow.
specials and all of that, and he was assistant. I can't think of his partner's name, that he was second to this huge Hollywood dress designer, costume designer. And we had this one page. He was only with us for 2 seasons, and then he went on to all the big folks. But the author writes, and then, this is speaking of 1966, saying, and then those 39 Mackey-clad kings headed off to the unemployment line.
Oh.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, really? That's funny.
Yeah.
And I just got this like, no, believe it or not. I mean, I already had in my mind, I was thinking I was going to do a really cool Shutterfly book just for us, And it turned into this because I read that thing and I went, well, yeah, there were times between everything we were doing over the next 15 years that we collected, checks, but kind of didn't march off to the unemployment line. And it gave me this, I'll show you, we weren't done.
Hard not to take that stuff personally. It's it's a double-edged sword. So successful, but then we open to the Mackey book people or whatever. It's kind of comes with the territory. When you wrote the book, was there anything that came to your mind that I'm not a writer in that way, so I'm wondering, do things come to your mind? Do you get memories because you're now sitting down and making yourself remember stuff?
Well, the format that I chose also helped with the growing of the ideas. I read a book by George Plimpton on the life of Harry Truman. Truman.
You mean
Truman Capote. Harry Truman Capote. Yes,
yes,
that was
different.
his first name. different Capote.
Truman Capote, he lost his election by just a few. Yeah.
And in the beginning of the book, he says, okay, if you want a straight, pardon the pun, biography on Capote, I recommend. And then he lists these books with the authors to you go over there because this may not be your jam. He said he had taken interviews and then things people said who had passed on. And he said, pretend you're at a cocktail party drifting from conversation to conversation. Because he's got Harper Lee, says, well, when we were kids, his daddy said he was going to show up. He didn't. And still, Truman did cartwheels all the way home. And you've got Gore Vidal saying he was so drunk, at that party. Everyone was embarrassed. And So you literally are sitting in, so it's chronological, but broken down.
Very cool.
So I took all the memoirs of all the dead folk and my cousins, and I said, so pretend you're at a picnic going from conversation. I'm going to go sit over at this table now, and I got to take the potato salad over here. Oh, I'm going to sit down here for a minute. And I have woven all chronologically, all the mom's stories. So everything is firsthand. It is I, me, we, as opposed to they, because I got the material to let them say it. And so it's cut together to be like you're sitting at the picnic table with us.
That's
brilliant. So that helped me come up with stuff.
Yeah.
But basically, as far as the memoirs of the folks who had passed on, that was me getting out my needle and thread. As far as the kids go, I just said, send me memories. And of course, from our own conversations, I would go like, hey, Steve-O, that thing, write that down for me. Put that thing I know that happened. Like, for example, speaking of the celebs, when we were with Uncle Milty, we were with Milton Berle on, again, on one of the episodes of Hollywood Palace.
And now here's a few words about the population explosion. Ladies and gentlemen, the King family.
And in this sketch, we were singing song, like one line from a song, and it would happen to Milton Berle, who was in a blonde wig, and he was cousin Rex, as in King. Get it?
Yes.
And he we would sing "Don't Sit Under the Apple Tree," and then a bunch of apples would fall on his head. Very vaudevillian, which that show came from. And when I get a kick from champagne, my cousin Steve was to kick him in the butt. And he tells how that, obviously it's not a stunt man, but that someone was on set to show him and teach him, and he's 8, to tell him how you kick someone in the ass without hurting them.
Right.
I mean, I went, write that down, because that's like,
yeah,
that's not a thing. I mean, you can't make this shit up.
That I get
a lot of my older siblings and cousins, they were the go-to kids in Hollywood whenever they needed young voices for recordings. They were part of, and most of the kids were the celebrities' kids, if that makes any sense. Like, my cousin sang on Frank Sinatra's High Hopes or Doris Day's Que Sera.
That's awesome.
The soundtrack to Bye Bye Birdie. All those teenagers, my kids, listen to me. My sibs that was them.
Yeah.
By the way, there is a great clip of the King family doing Telephone Hour on YouTube. That's such a fantastic version of it.
Yeah. They were, and a number of them were there for that session at whatever, studio where they recorded it for the film.
Wow. So Cam, was there an age though that you thought that performing was something you wanted to do, or was it just an assumption that was your destiny, that you knew that this is what you're going to end up doing?
Since I'm 5 years old, you mean to continue it as an adult, or you mean in the day?
Well, even if you didn't, even if you're a kid and you still continued, was there a time in your own mind that no one can crack our own minds once we start developing, where I don't want to do this, or wait, I love this. This is my destiny. This is what I want to do. Like, was there an age?
Well, when I started thinking about college, I was like, I'm either going to be a massive movie star, or I'm going to pursue my other love, which is art. And I went to Parsons Design Center. In fact, in the first class that when Otis, which was a fine art school in downtown LA, was bought by Parsons Design School, I wanted to be an illustrator of children's books. And also my idols were Charles Schultz, Joan Walsh Anglin, and even Gary Larson.
Oh, love
because
Gary.
I had a couple of books out as that I illustrated as like a cartoonist.
Yeah.
In the 80s, I released a book called How to Be a Total Californian that did really well.
We're gonna move on. I want to. I hear you're interested in getting into like voiceover animation stuff, and we'd like to ask you a little bit about that.
Can you tell me how to get into that?
Your resume is ridiculous. Okay, but I just wanted to say, let's put a button on the King family or in the memories and all that stuff, although we can go back to it. I'm also remembering, went to your one-man show, Stop Me If I Told You This. Was that the name of it?
Yeah.
So good. But also, you're probably tapping into similar picnics to write that. I'm remembering some of that material. Wow. That's fascinating.
The difference between that show, which was almost like After Dark, uh, it was a raw show, as you recall. Where this book, I will say, the George Plimpton Capote thing, it's got everything there. This is a Valentine, intentionally. It's a coffee table book, yay by yay, beautiful photography. And I just wanted this to be a place with Vaseline on the lens, cheesecloth, shooting through cheesecloth to show this of it. So the divorces, which there were, the booze, which there was, whatever. It's not in it.
Good.
So it's just like lollipops.
I love that. Hey, Jonathan, do you think I'm over this beautiful, perfect family thing of his, and mine was so dysfunctional, although I love them all very, very much. Could you ask him about his animation already? I want to talk about this. No, it's
let me just do the plug, though, where it's rarebirdlit.com. My publisher is Rarebird. It's where you can go if you're interested in checking out the book. And also on my page, camclarkvoices.com, on my Facebook page, I have, interviews with people, and I share pages from the book if you want to see.
I'm still stuck on you guys had ass kicking lessons, which I love.
That is so amazing.
Yes.
Right.
Before we get to animation, another show, one of your first credits, it was a show that I loved, was in Daniel Boone with Fess Parker. So what do you remember about that? And I just want to, you had performed always with your family. So were there like another set of nerves now that you're like, I'm not with them anymore, I have to like be with these people now that I don't really know? It was
kind of exciting.
Yeah.
It was almost as if like we said earlier, what we did, that was not performing. That's the lights and the thing. That's just us. So to be on location with Darby Hinton, Moosie.
Yep.
And with, the rest of the cast, it was like, this is, oh my goodness, I'm performing. So it was almost like the family thing was not in that category. So I was just excited. And that's not, my part was huge. It was a fun little guest spot, and I was the bully, typecasting, right, Moose?
Yeah. Very intimidating. Yes.
I was looking over your like extensive credits, and you really started, voiceover like really early. I mean, like right away you were already doing several cartoons. Was that by design? Do you remember conversations telling you to do voiceover besides appearing in front of the camera?
Okay, backing up, apparently as a kid, and I am not a what do you call it, impersonator, but like on our show, on our Halloween episode, I opened as Alfred Hitchcock. I'm 7 years old, and welcome with a profile, the whole thing with the nose. They drew his whole set.
Good evening. Welcome to the King Family Show.
And I did him, and then I did Jimmy Durante.
Now we both are stating our
all that stuff. So I had an ear for voices. But I came home from my mission for the Mormon Church and spent 2 semesters up at BYU, and I went, okay, no thanks, not me. I know what I want to do. I'm either going to be an artist or I'm going to be in the business. So I don't need to go to college. So kids, don't bother with college.
It's a great message.
And so I'm going to Parsons, and my brother Rick was an AP over at Warner Brothers. And he said, there's this thing called looping. And I won't go into that, but guys, looping is a voiceover area that works with television and film and post-production. So he would say, do you want to come do this? I'm going, okay. And I can remember he'd go, yeah, we're going to do an episode on Wednesday. I'm like, oh, I have class. I'm going to have to miss class, right? Anyway, on one of these shows, and I got passed around. I was now working at Columbia for this gal. And on this particular film, I met this couple, Linda Gary and Chuck Howard. And they just said, and again, we're not doing cartoons. We're doing fight grunts. We're doing police radio calls, all that kind of thing. And she comes up to me because we were a couple of days on this film. And she goes, have you ever thought about doing this for a living? I went, I don't know. Doing what? I don't know. And she said, well, we think you should. And this woman set me up with an agent. She got me a coach. And I never looked back.
Wow.
But what are the... I would have still pursued the looping thing because I'm now in it. Even if I didn't appreciate it to the enormity that it was. But had Linda not seen something in me, and I've tried to be mindful as I've gone through my career about listening to other people and trying to think they are worthy, and is there anything I can do? But I've met waiters and waitresses where, and I'm always, if I feel something that they're more than, are you finished with this or would you like to order? I go, what do you do when you're not waiting tables? And I just love doing this, and they appreciate it. And they go, oh, I'm an actor, I'm a dancer, I'm a singer. And I will pursue it. And sometimes I've had these kids come to the stage, Moose, as you been with me. And I love that little thing. But it is Linda who got me with an agent and literally never looked back. Booked a job, I don't remember what it was, and then maybe 4 months later got another one. And then it was just and
yeah,
it was just like off to the races. And it's
pretty cool, man.
It was
waiters who are also actors. Wow.
What's that?
Yeah, I know. I know.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's funny. So, okay, let's rattle through some of these. One of them was Robotech in the 80s, right? How was that experience? I hate to say, like, how'd you come across that? It's auditions and then you get it usually, but unless it's a crazy story.
Part of the business, and whether this is a gift or something you can hone, is antenna. Perfect antenna to hear and listen and be aware. Oh, there's so many of the things that happened to my career was because I was listening to something and I didn't just go, oh yeah, that's wacky. I would go, wait, let me write this down. And I was having lunch with an old friend from school, and she mentioned this. We didn't have the word anime yet, but this dubbing thing. I called, couldn't get an appointment. So I crashed the audition, something else you can't do anymore. I just showed up at the studio that was doing Robotech. I went, yeah, Cam Clarke, 315. I'm sorry, we don't see you here, and I'm like, just the cliche of, well, how would I know to be here? And she was like, get flustered, which is what you want to do to people to get them off guard, right? And she went, well, I'll squeeze you in. And then I booked it.
Straight out of a biopic. That's such that I love that, because I wish people could still crash auditions. If little Shirley Temple comes in and they're looking for a cute little girl and she knocks it out of the park, she just starts singing, but she wasn't on the list. They're not going to go, she's the most adorable thing ever in the universe, in history, but she wasn't on the list. So
she's a cheater and a liar.
He's a leader, that little lollipop stealer. No, but you know what I mean? Like, you probably came in and just killed, and they're like, well, who cares that we didn't have him down or whatever. You can later admit, yeah, I crashed the thing. Great. I'll see you on Monday at 10 a.m. You know what I mean?
I don't even know if they took that much time. It was just like, for this role, they're going to use so-and-so, and let's do Cam Clarke for this. I hear everything you're saying, but for all I know, it was Fast and Furious and whatever. And I don't even know if those people knew that they didn't know me.
They will. When we get off, I'm going to email them this little segment.
You said there was the anime wasn't but you've done a lot of anime. I mean, had you been a fan of it though, at least before then?
No, I hated it. I hated it. I mean, I had a crush on Astro Boy. So that was, Astro Boy, black hot pants and red knee-high boots. I mean, come on. And that Wolverine hair that he had.
Right.
I did not like it. What were you going to say?
This is sort of actually not quite on topic, but we would do an airline line. So there's a movie. Yeah. There's a movie, and it has the F word. Like Cam or myself will come in and say, frick, or something like that. And the real obvious, they used to be worse than they are nowadays. But those are
contracted. Hilarious. I did all of for many years, I was in charge of the Universal airplane dubs. And each network, it's like on ABC, we say frick. And on NBC, we say feck. But each network had their choice of what we can use for swear words.
Okay, so Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I've heard of them.
Kind of a huge credit. Great series. Lasted. I mean, still going. It's probably one of those things that's never not shown. It's always somewhere. And you played Leonardo.
The iterations.
Yes.
There have been so many casts. It's still new. There is still new product in the franchise. We're on for 9 seasons, and then of course, did reruns.
Okay, you were Leonardo.
Yes, the leader. We got to think of something fast.
I love it. When you say you don't really imitate people, you voice match. You were doing Truman Capote a little while ago. Even a little hint of him in your storytelling. So the leader. So Leonardo was
Simba. I got Simba. I took over from Matthew Broderick.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been doing Matthew Broderick since I first got into business. Disney used to do LPs of a lot of their movies with sound alikes. And so as if War Games was a radio play. And for whatever reason, I knew how to do Matthew Broderick. I did all of his stuff. And Kira, how can you not want to be queen? That's like saying you don't want to be a lion. We are all part of the circle of life.
That's fecking
Spooky,
good.
Yeah?
Whatever.
What is that? NBC or ABC?
Yeah. You go all over the place inside, but people are lining up like crazy to meet you guys, to talk to you guys. There's Townsend.
Rob Paulson had to put a gun to my head to do these. He was after me. He played Raphael. And a billion other things. He said, you got to come out to these. And I was like, who's going to want our autographs? Because I'm not being coy. I knew I was in the book of animation. I knew my name would be in there as far as these are the people that did stuff. But I thought that's all it was. And to then go to these things and know we are very much still alive, looking at the size of these lines that come up and thank you for my childhood. And, it is, I had no idea that it was about nostalgia. And that my fans who were little kids with cereal are now in their midlife when people generally start looking back at what has happened and what they miss. So these people are like, and they introduce it to their kids, which is insane. I didn't introduce anybody to Rocky and Bullwinkle. I could have cared less. I loved it, but it wasn't like, son, sit down before me and I shall show you. And yet that's what they do. But so no idea. So it's been a delightful way to go, oh, I guess I'm not just an asterisk. And a few years ago, Honda, for their Christmas campaign, wanted the Turtles in this campaign. So the suits are probably in their, at this time, maybe, I don't know how many years ago, 10, 8, are they were kids when we were on the air. And their
Mm.
campaign is, remember that year you got your Ninja Turtles for Christmas.
Hmm.
Get that Christmas morning feeling again with your Honda, you know.
Yeah, God.
But these kids
Yeah.
are adults in charge, and they're going, what is the biggest Christmas memory? And we all come ensemble in to record this. And these guys and gals are like doing this. Talk about humbling and talk about powerful. This huge car company is relying, isn't the word, but having us say what they want to get across by what we were.
Oh,
Barry
yeah.
Gordon, Townie Coleman, Rob Paulson, me, Pete Renaday, Renee Jacobs was April O'Neil,
Mhm.
and the amazing James Avery was the lead villain, Shredder, who of course was one of the main leads on Fresh Prince.
Right. Very cool. And Robbie Rist, who's he in all this?
He was in
He was
one
in
of
the
the
movie.
iterations. First
Yeah.
movie? Yeah.
Was
Yeah,
he?
we talk about that when I've seen him at shows at these conventions, which he does. We joke about, turtles, because there have been so many, which is proof that the play's the thing.
Well, since you're on the movie, I'm now curious though. Did they ask any of the cartoon cast in the movie? Because the movie came out like only a few years later.
We're like thinking, okay, we're on a roll. Here we go. No.
Wow.
And every iteration has had a different cast. Robbie has had the privilege of being one of the other casts and then directing as well. But it's different folks all the time.
Did you guys all record in the same room at the same time, which is very unconventional?
Back in the day when you could do, wasn't unconventional. It's how it was done.
It was
until
done.
Everybody's going in by themselves, which really puts a wet blanket over creativity and ad lib. And because the way you tell me when you give me the line before mine, Moose, each way you deliver it has the potential to change how I deliver it, however I respond to you. And that's not available in video games or in modern animation ensemble.
And just so people know what happens is on the techie side, one day they went, wait a minute, if we record everybody separately, we can control each, if anybody overlaps, whatever. But that's not always it.
But actually, you've got this wizard with magic fingers in the booth. We're all on our own microphones. And he's got all his, concert pianist fingers, and he's shove, 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 shove. He's got the script, and he's shoving the fader up and bringing it right back down and shoving that one up. So there's the pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. That's how that
they should do that. I did a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, and we would all sit in a line in front of our own music stand with the dialogue and the microphone, and be able to kind of glance over while you're doing the dialogue with people, and that really helps. I think,
totally.
Yeah.
I do have one more Turtles question, if you'll allow. I said, you get to interact much with the writers, like Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. Did they come around?
We met, but they weren't. They were script approval and writing, and they were hands on that way, but it's not like they were hanging out at the sessions.
You were involved in one of the versions of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
Yes,
where you played He-Man.
It was a Canadian production, however, but produced by the folks who produced Clifford. So Clifford the Big Red Dog. So they were already familiar with me. And it came from up north that they couldn't find somebody in all of Canada. I know they have a population of 1,300, but who could be both Prince Adam and He-Man. And I guess in the original, they were two different actors or something. And so they came down here, and I kind of as much as you can say, I got this in the bag, which is a pretty stupid thing to say, actually, but I did. Because doing that age jump is kind of pretty easy for my range at that time. So, by the power of Grayskull, I have the power.
Love it.
Or something like that. Get in your time machine and go back 15, whatever it is, years.
Well,
that was fantastic. Let's get an alt. No.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask about.
I think you mean an alt actor.
No, sir.
Because He-Man, this is before social media. The last He-Man version that they did recently, like the last couple of years, was like killed online. So
killed meaning it was great.
No, that they hated it.
Oh, okay.
They hated it. So when you do, this was before like social media time, but when you do like characters like He-Man and you did Professor X and the X-Men, so is there any like sort of pressure that this is such a well-known figure? Do I have to perform it a certain way? Because it's meeting like viewers' expectations, I guess, or something.
Yeah.
I think often on camera goes a similar way. I mean, that never crossed my mind, unless the only way in voiceover that would be more like with Simba, where they want a sound match. And I kind of perform in Matthew Broderick's manner, as I've come to know it, having doubled for him vocally over the years. So with Simba, I kind of stay in this kind of a place, a little halting, and it's kind of, he also talks like an old Jewish man. It's kind of, if I were older, it would be a day,
Right.
But he's kind of here, and I stay within that range. But with He-Man, he's kind of like superhero 113-B. So it was pretty much just finding a place he's kind of straight up hero. So, and I don't have that kind of deep voice that, was it Oppenheimer that did it originally? Alan? I think Alan did it originally, or maybe he was Skeletor. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I just did mine. So I don't, unless you're doing a voice match, that doesn't enter. And like with the Turtles, although you have the basic, this one's the nerd and this one's the leader, each iteration has been different, completely different voice, just staying in those broad strokes of what they're looking for.
Yeah. When you just did Simba and you did Matthew Broderick before in another voice, it reminds me of the guy who did Scooby-Doo. You do all kinds of voices. And on breaks, we were kids and we're like, oh, can you do the Scooby? And he would do that. And I would just be like this. And that's how I feel like when hearing you do those things.
It was John Irwin who did He-Man.
Ah, okay. Well, thank
Oppenheimer
you.
Did
thank you,
Skeletor.
Moose. I will say, how old would you have been?
I don't know, probably 10.
Okay. When we first hit it big with Turtles, people, if I was at someone's house and their kids, oh, Cam, come here, do some, Leonardo for my little kid. And so I'd lean down and go, hey kids, it's Leonardo here. And they'd start bawling their eyes out, run from the room, screaming.
They don't know
at 10 years old, you would get it. But, maybe 6 and 7 or 5 who were in those days were watching it that young. So I said, how about, do you have a second phone line? And when people would say it, I go, just put me in the other room, kind of like, I'll talk to them on the phone. Then they see who they're supposed to see.
I do want to ask about one of my favorite animated films. I love all things Scooby-Doo, and you were one of the scariest ones. It's always listed in one of the scariest, the Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. So
it cracks me up. I get so much love. I'm just a guest. Of course, I was jazzed to go, I'm going to be on a Scooby-Doo movie. So there was that, because it's a title that I grew up with. But I'll get fans who come up and go, this is the best, or online, this is the best Scooby-Doo movie.
100%. 100% it is.
And I was the sexy detective. I think the voice I used was right about here.
You know what? It's a scary movie for real.
I need to watch it. I need to watch it like next Halloween.
It's hard to believe this, but it's true. You're not the only one who's been on here that's been in Scooby-Doo on this island.
Who else in this Zoom was on?
We had Adrian Barbeau not too long ago.
BJ did it for BJ Ward did Daphne, I think, for a while. I think Gray Delilah's doing her now.
Yes.
So, but they try to keep her just like the Disney folks. They try to keep it as it was, I think. I don't think they're into, let's give it a whole new sound, at least not to my knowledge. When they did the sequel to Little Mermaid, that we both, Flounder and Ariel both have kids. So they needed a grown-up Flounder. The kids, as a lot of happens, y'all, as you know, when a child is in a show, like let's take Charlie Brown, those kids, had to be rotated out, especially the boys, when their voice would change. And so the kid that did the original Flounder, I think he might have been old enough. I mean, his voice would have changed. I don't know if he was old enough to have a father voice, but they said, we need him as a dad. And also this kid was a kid, has no interest in doing this anymore. Like, ew, I hate it or whatever, even though the money was a nice thing. But so I took the sounds of the kid. So they go, here's the, watch the little kid. And he kind of had a bit of an adenoid thing. And his voice was kind of, not husky, but, it had this kind of shredded wheat kind of thing. So, hey, kids, what have I told you about playing Kick the Crab on the Reef? Sorry, Ariel. So just using the kids' wrinkles, as we'll say when we're doing wrinkles. What kind of wrinkles do you want me to give this character? And just said, what if his testicles had dropped? So.
Whoa. What if they did? It's kind of personal, and I don't know if that's appropriate. God, I love hearing that. So, Cam, as we turn the corner here, and
no filters.
No, we got to wait. I got to ask one more before we go.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, because before we started recording, I mentioned to you before recording how much my kids loved Barnyard. So we must discuss that before we end anything, because, like I said, they would kill me if not. So your experiences on that show?
Yeah. For starters, as I talk about this in my book, some I'd say much of the time, I mean, it depends on the actor. When you get the sides, you're also given a sketch. And we might have touched on this earlier, but if it's a pelican, if it's a giraffe, if it's a snail, depending on all the things on the face, if it has a long nose like a wolf or something, you dress him accordingly. Well, I had this voice that I knew someday somebody would want. It's like it just was something I goofing around with. I went, oh, I got to remember this, and I'll just carry it around in my hip pocket. I'll toss him in there for auditions, and someday somebody's going to go, that's it. And that's what happened with Barnyard. So I did him like this, and this is Freddy the Ferret. And my model for that, this is really random and a really deep dive. In the film, the producers, Gene Wilder, and he would also, this was kind of a thing of his, and in Willy Wonka, when he'd get mad, his voice, or like Young Frankenstein, his voice would shred. He'd do this thing. And so I just took it up here, because shredding is like surprisingly, that's an easy place for me. But so Freddy, his best friend and I just made him a little stupid. His best friend was a rooster. And you can't eat your friends. Or can you? No, you can't. Hello, pet, old pal.
Oh my goodness, Jonathan, your kids are they're not going to kill you now. That
Right,
was
exactly.
they're going to praise you. I love that. I love that. Wow. Well, so okay, we are going to bring it home after 4 more hours. What we are. But so what were when you were a kid before you got into voiceover stuff? What was your favorite? What were your favorite cartoons that you'd watch?
Oh, I'll drop one really deep dive.
Mhm.
There was a cartoon that lasted one season called Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids.
Oh,
It
yes.
was, you know of it?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
He's an encyclopedia, but go ahead.
All right. My buddy Paul was the lead singer, and his dad was a muckety muck at Capitol. And so his sister and my cousin Susanna, also part of the King family, were the band. And so we go to Hanna-Barbera and they drew us.
Oh, wow.
However, if you were to look at it, it's like, well, no, that's just Shaggy's head on a curly-haired blonde boy. And this is Susanna on Daphne's face, or, but we went in there. Susanna and I dropped out after the first episode because the manager, a guy, shoot, I can't think of his name. This guy, old-time guy who managed Fabian and a lot of those, teen idols back in the early 60s or late 50s even. He said to Susanna and me, now, if this is big, your lives are going to change. And you may not be able to go to your senior prom, because this, da, 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 da. And he kind of spooked us. Now, years later, Susanna and I go, well, that was stupid to go to the prom. Having been there, it's like, I could have missed this.
Yeah.
But so that was my first Hanna-Barbera experience, was back then in like 1973. But so that's just, bring it back home, Cam. Your question was what, Moose?
What was your first uncle like? No, it was. My question was, what was your favorite, if any one stands out? The Flintstones, Jetsons, doesn't have to be Hanna-Barbera.
As a kid?
But as a kid, what did you sit there with the cereal box and the TV screen with?
Well, first of all, getting up on a school day, my mother would like to have to pour a bucket of ice water on my head to get me out of bed.
Right.
On Saturdays, boink, 6:30, started with Cool McCool. And then I just stayed there, like I said earlier, to bandstand. I don't know if I could narrow it down to one. But as far as Saturday morning shows, I would have to say, like, Saturday morning, I mean, taking Hanna-Barbera off the table, because those were after school, like McGilla Gorilla and such. I would have to say Scooby-Doo and the Archies, which was a little older. I mean, I was older then. Well, wait, both of those I'm older. So early, I think I loved like Casper. And, I'd have to look in the book of animation to see when I was a little kid, but I know Cool McCool was up there.
I was just curious because you've done so many, and then I'm just wondering, like, what influenced you in that way. But I guess just all in general.
I don't know that I don't know. I mean, because who knew that this was going to be a thing?
Yeah.
So I don't know that I never had an influence because it wasn't my plan. But as I said earlier, even on the King Family show, I did Hitchcock and I did Jimmy Durante. So I kind of had an ear for it. And like even a lot of kids my age, one of the best presents you could get at Christmas was a reel-to-reel tape recorder. I don't know about you, Moose. Are you old enough to have that?
Fancy, not the reel. I didn't have the reel-to-reel. No.
You had the cassette.
I had the cassette. Yeah.
Well, I got this, and I'm not talking about some Foxy studio thing. Just like this, a reel-to-reel, And I would record, my friends and I would record, and we'd trade off who's going to be the host and who the guest is. And so just this kind of born with an improv ability with your fantasy. All kids have, fantasy friends and games and stuff. But I would interview, and I remember interviewing my mom as a little kid for a radio show that I was doing on my tape. And I went, Mother, I need you to, and she's at the kitchen table washing, the kitchen cleaning or something. And I go, oh, Mother, I need you to sing the ABC song, but in your sexiest, sultriest voice, because that was my mom. And she's like, doesn't even blink, it's all in a day's imagination. She goes, all right, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, W, X, Y, Z. Now you've heard my ABCs, and all that. I went, thanks. She goes, you bet, dear. And so there was a lot of that and just playing. So I think it's kind of like maybe it's born in you, like a music thing or art.
Yeah.
I honestly can't answer that other than to say I didn't listen to others except for Matthew Broderick.
Butch Cassidy came out around the time when they were doing all these Scooby-Doo copy shows.
Which is,
right. It was
here's
like Speed
a cloak
Buggy,
and dagger
Funky
story.
Phantom.
Here's a mystery. Here's the Sundance Kids and Butch Cassidy. Ow! Yeah, a lot of copycats. Yeah.
Hey.
I did love the Hardy Boys. Oh boy, here come the Hardys. Oh boy, we're having a party. Yeah, I can't remember what I had for breakfast, but
Right. And so far, we're paying royalties on 17 songs. So
it was only 4 bars. Only 4 bars.
We won't get pulled. Cam, you're so talented. It's just
right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I mean, don't argue with me.
So,
this has been great, you guys.
Yeah. Well, how can people follow you on social media?
Oh, I don't know. How?
Well,
okay, you can go to camclarkvoices.com.
There you go.
And there's all the gobbledygook. Like if you want Leonardo to wish somebody a Merry Christmas or a Happy Hanukkah, or Liquid Snake, which is my second most popular character. You can get a Christmas greeting, from him. And that's where you can also find links to the book that's giant behind Moosie's head.
All right, Cam. Well, listen.
But thanks for letting me do my shameless plugs.
The book.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And it comes out on December.
Well, we have a pre-order right now so that if you want it as a gift or a gift, for yourself, you can get it before Christmas. The main drop will be after the first of the year, because we were down to the wire on that, but we did order a number of them for Christmas.
Oh, fantastic.
So operators are standing by. Hey kids, tell mom.
Yeah, get your mom's wallet and go to the phone.
Right. Well, thank you again. And it's been a real treat. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Cam. Love you, Cam.
This has been Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen with Moosie Drier. And again, a very special thanks to Cam Clarke. And please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you for tuning in to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast. Listening to this podcast just makes you really cool.